All right, guys, my name is Sean. Welcome back to the GDC podcast. We got Brody, Billy back on the podcast, as well as our guest, Omar Salameh. Did I say that right?
Salema, close enough.
Salema. Omar Salema. He's the owner and founder of Ultimate Road Rally. He also starred on Hyperdrive on Netflix, so we're happy to have him on the podcast today. How you doing today, Omar?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Sean, for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the interview. So I want you to tell me a little bit about what you do for a living and kind of what cars you're driving right now.
All right. So I own a consulting company called UR Consulting, which owns Ultimate Road Rally, which is a competition-based road rally. We pretty much get some highline clients out here in Chicago and the Midwest, and we invite them out to kind of just drive their supercars, have fun with it. But I also work for a company called Chicago Motor Cars, which is the reason I started kind of Ultimate Road Rally. You know, I mean, I had all the client base, and they wanted to drive some cool cars and meet some other clients. So we invite them out a couple times a year to have fun and drive around.
Very cool. And it's business consulting?
Yeah, the consulting company that I have is pretty much anything to do with cars. So the clients, I help broker somebody find a supercar, and then once they buy the supercar, they want to know like where to get wheels from, where to get their customization on their radar detectors, you know, tinted windows, wraps, clear bras, and I just kind of be the middleman for all that.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I pretty much started doing that because what happened is I had a client say like, hey, I want to buy a cool car. Where do I buy it from, and how do I customize it, and where do I do with it? So I'm like, all right, well, I'll help you get your dream car, help you customize it, and then I'll introduce you to other guys with cool cars, and kind of a giant social networking for, you know, clients that had money, that had cool cars and want to enjoy, I guess, you know, that lifestyle together.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, that's awesome because, I mean, yeah, like you said, you know, the exotic aspect of it where, yeah, the car's exotic, but where do you get all those aftermarket parts? So that's really cool kind of thing that you offer for them so they can actually get what they actually want out of that car. So very neat.
Yep.
So I know you kind of elaborated a little bit on that, but how did you choose that as your route to go? How did you know that's what you wanted to do?
So I've been in the car business since I was 18 years old. And as I got a little older, maybe I was like 20, I want to say, there still is today. It's a car show called Supercar Saturdays, which almost everybody has a Supercar Saturday or some sort of supercar day on their weekend. And everybody would meet up at this, you know, mall parking lot. And prior to that, people were like, hey, I want to meet up. They would ask me, like, because I had a few friends with cool cars. I'm like, we'd meet at a Starbucks, we'd have breakfast, and we'd drive there together. And then afterward, we'd go out to lunch. And they were like, hey, we want to join this. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do this for free. You know, I was like, why don't I'll charge you guys and I'll start setting up events for you. So it kind of started off as small. At the time, it first started off, it was a charity event for kids with cancer, which it still is today. It's just not geared 100% towards that. We do multiple charity events. So it started off as an event called Car Cruise for Cancer. So I used to have some guys come out and they would donate toys and you know, to be honest, try to meet the kids. But at the time, these charities were like, hey, we don't want to meet these. You can't meet the kids. You know, they were very kind of locked down on it. So I kind of backed off on the kids' cancer stuff. And I was like, all right, why don't we just have fun with the cars? We changed the name to Ultimate Road Rally. And then a charity reached out to us and was like, hey, can you guys give us rides in cars? And our kids we don't want any money. We just want to hang out. And I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for 3 years ago. And then so it kind of grew. And then every year now we do like multiple events. But the way it kind of started, like I said, it was just me kind of getting my friends together, having fun. And it kind of progressed. And every event got better and more cars. And they would tell their friends. And then I just kind of came up. And I do Gold Rush Rally all the time, which we're a sponsor of Chicago Motor Cars is. So I'm really good friends with them, and I would see the way that they were doing their rallies, and I was like, all right, you know, it's two different events, but definitely similar in the sense of all these car events and rallies are exactly what they are. It's a bunch of cool cars, a bunch of cool people. You put them together, you're bound to have a good time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I really like about the car community. You know, rather than a lot of other different hobbies and niches, is I feel like in other places, some people are very closed off and they kind of keep to themselves. But the car community, I feel like, is beginning to get more friendly and collaborations and things like that. Like having you on the podcast, it wasn't a big deal. It didn't take long to set up. I just reached out to you, said, hey, you want to be on our podcast? You were like, absolutely. And I think that kind of collaboration is what's going to push car culture forward for sure.
100%. I feel like, I go to the gas station, I might be driving my McLaren or whatever car I'm driving, and some kid will pull up in a Subaru or whatever, and he'll just be like, hey, what's up? And we just talk cars.
Yeah.
To me, Ultimate Road Rally is just based towards exotic cars at this exact time. We have an app, and we're going to be launching next year where anybody can be in the Ultimate Road Rally via the app. It's kind of like a game point system.
Cool.
So we're working on that. But as of right now, like some people are like, hey, how come you don't let Subarus or Mustangs in your rallies? And it's not because I'm biased and it's just because I'm trying to keep it exclusive still, and it's nice to have 30, 40 supercars and at once, but it's a tough situation. But I'm open to all cars. I'm friends with anybody. A lot of my friends have supercars, but obviously I know some kids who don't have a supercar. And it's kind of like, that's an open door always, right? And I'm like, hey, here's what's up. I got a cool car. You got a cool car. Let's talk cars.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I know your story, Omar, as far as getting casted on Hyperdrive. And, I know all three of us have watched the entire series, absolutely loved it. So hats off to you and everyone else on the show, including the producers and everything like that. But for those who don't know how you got casted for it and what the process was like, would you kind of explain that to us?
Yeah. So obviously you guys probably watched the VinWiki story I did with Ed, right? Mm-hmm. So it kind of gives you a backstory of it. So I got a message on Instagram and like my email's on my Instagram. So she's like, hey, check your email. So I looked at my email and it was like pretty much this like little paragraph is like, hey, sign this and we'll tell you what we're doing. I'm like, what is this? It's like, NDA. And at first I'm like, is this real or not real? And obviously by doing some research, just Googling the girl's name, I saw that she worked for a company called Whale Rock Industries, which is part of Netflix. And they pretty much said, hey, we see your cool stuff on your Instagram. They hit me up on my Ultimate Road Rally page. And they're like, we like the car stuff. They're like, is there a chance that you want to compete in this competition across the U.S.? They didn't tell us anything about the competition, right? And originally, I thought it was going to be like more like a cannonball style where, amazing race, kind of like what my rallies are. I thought we were going to start in New York, end in Florida or L.A. or wherever they were going to take us, because they were asking us, which states are you allowed to drive in? Are you banned from any countries? They were asking all these crazy questions, and I was like, okay. And so I answered all the questions. It took a year and a half. I mean, honestly, we did 100 Skype, well, not 100, but we did 10 Skype conversations just like this. And there'd be a room of producers and they would ask me questions. And I was like, all right. And they never told us one thing. And then they were just like, one day, and then a month before I had the date that we were supposed to film, that's when I crashed the car that I was supposed to take. I had a Viper. So I remember calling them up and I was like, after, this is a year of interviews and emails. All this crazy stuff.
You went through the whole process basically to get there. You had the Viper ready to roll. And then a month before, you crash it. And now you're like, oh, crap. I've got this show coming up. I had a perfect vehicle. Now what am I going to do?
And I thought I was going to be on the show. I was like, all right, guys, what do you want? And they were literally, I probably have the email still. And they were like, if you don't get a car in the next 2 weeks, or like, we're going to have to like pass on your spot. I'm in the car industry. I'll have a car, And at the time, they want proof of ownership. So they want like a title with your name on it. And it takes, I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know what states you guys are in, but you don't get a title like in 2 days. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for me to get a title.
Yeah.
So I'm like calling the Secretary of State, trying to get the title for that Mercedes. At the time, like when this all happened, like within that few days, I knew I was going to buy that Mercedes because my friend was like, I'm going to trade it in. And I kind of said to the show, I'm like, do you guys like this? I was texting the producers the picture of it, and they thought it was the coolest looking Mercedes. It looked cool as hell. You guys saw the car. It was just a shitty fucking car. You know what I mean? Like to drive it. It just not made – that car did not want to spin. It did not want to move. I have like all the behind the scenes footage we're not allowed to post. Like all that car was literally braking all the time. Like it would spin and you would just see the car turn off and you'd see the guys come up and like check the car and we'd push it off off the set pretty much.
Sure.
So unfortunately that car wasn't very good. And, I explained why we did the door thing and obviously hyperdrive. I know I'm jumping ahead on this, but Like, if you watch the Ben Wiki story, you'll get the backstory of it.
Sure.
But the whole process of getting on the show was honestly not too bad. It just sucked that month before we got on the show. We had all those issues, but we had to get something, and that's what we did with that car.
Was there ever a point in that process, like right when the car crashed, where you were like, man, I'm not going to be able to do this show? Or were you like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to get on the show?
So I actually had my fiance at the time with me, my ex-fiance, to be honest. But so when we crashed, I was so worried about the car that she was so mad at me because I literally looked at the car and I'm like taking pictures of it. I'm like, the first thing in my head was like, oh, I'm not going on this show, as opposed to seeing if she was okay. And I was like, and she wasn't. And I knew she was okay.
Oh, no.
I knew she was okay because when we crashed, we were going 40 miles an hour, which is a bad rainstorm. When we hit that wall, I literally looked over at her and I was like, are you okay? She just doesn't remember. She's like, yeah. And I got out of the car and I was like, man, right away, I was like, how am I going to fix this car in 3 weeks? So, yeah, I did think I was going to get under, but I knew the one thing is they wouldn't let me. I was going to just grab a car from the dealer, right? I was like, because I didn't know what the show was about. Now knowing I would have never been able to take a car from the dealer because we would have roll caged in the car. We would have hydro brake in it, which didn't work. But like I said, if I had to, if people message me all the time and ask me hey, how do I get on the show or should I do it? I think if you have an opportunity to go on that show, it was the coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys saw the set. That was insane. It was.
Oh, yeah. It was the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, and I talked to almost all the guys that were on the cast with us, on a weekly basis. Some of them we text a lot, Fielding, me and Aaron, we talk all the time. And then, through social media, obviously, we all stay connected. And we're all going to be together next week for SEMA. So Rutledge is throwing a little VIP party for us. So we're all going to go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I'm thankful for the experience to go on there. It was awesome. Does it help with my career? No. I did it for a fun thing. Some of those guys now are just killing it. They got huge sponsors. I mean, who was your guys' favorite on the show? Do you have favorites?
Hey, I like Fielding a lot. I think Fielding was a cool guy. Basically, Sean and I are both from Texas, so we're from down there. But we like his backstory.
I like Fielding quite a bit. Like Brody said, we're both from Texas, and so kind of supporting him from Texas. I also really liked what's her name? She has the Light Bright YouTube channel.
Brittany, yeah, she was just at my house a couple weeks ago.
Yes, Brittany. Really liked Brittany. I thought what she brought to the table was very, very cool. And we talked about it on a previous podcast about I liked how they brought on a variety of different drivers from all different backgrounds. And that's what was really enjoyable about the show. You had the young lady who wasn't even from anywhere close to this. Well, she was from she wasn't from Africa, was she?
Yeah. Hold on one sec. What's up? That's fine. Okay, you got to separate them. Just don't keep. I need help. All right, give me a minute. Sorry, I have my puppy outside. He's got a Doberman puppy, and his Doberman's he just said they're in the backyard. They're all muddy right now.
Well, I've seen the puppy on Instagram. He looks a little ornery.
Yeah, I know he's awesome. He's having fun over here. But like I said, the cool thing was here. All those people came from all over the country, all over the world, and we all had one thing in common, right? We were there because we were passionate about cars. Every one of those people, on the show, the way they portray people, obviously they can do whatever they want to do, right? They could show you be a hero. Fielding was super cool. The way he is on the show is the way he is in real life. He just didn't care. He just had fun. Yeah. He belonged. If I would have known prior to the show of this drifting thing they were doing and all this crazy stuff, I would have probably prepared a little better, right? I would have bought a cheaper car. I would have went and practiced drifting. They never told us once we were drifting. They were just hey, you want to race? That's why some of those guys are in drag cars. Think about it.
And those guys had no chance. The guys in the drag cars?
No. And they knew it right off the bat. Right when we got there, we got these guys back. You guys got cut up for a minute.
I have no idea what went on there. Sorry, guys.
Okay. So I was telling him, saying about Fielding, all the guys, everybody's super cool. One thing is, when we got on that show, or when they told us to come there, they never explained anything about what we were doing, right? It was more of they have this set, we're going to be racing. So when these guys brought these drag cars there, and I obviously brought a Mercedes, and Jordan, we knew that they asked us to put hydro brakes in the cars. And at the time, even like we thought, like, because they said, like, they kept saying Fast and the Furious. Well, Fast and the Furious, they're not sliding and hitting stuff, right? They might just do like a 360 or 180, like reverse throw, or like flip the car around, which that's what I figured an e-brake would work. Because on a newer car, if you guys drive anything newer, they have electric parking brakes, right? You press a button. You can't push the button, and it literally will lock up the car. It's not like you have control. So they were like, the reason we had the hydro brake in is because literally they gave us a checklist. It said it had to have full roll cage, no airbags, and the hydro brake. Those were the 3 requirements. So like, I gave it to my mechanic, and he put it in there. But the brake that we put in the car, it was like a 2-way brake. So it was supposed to, you press it forward and it locks the front brakes up, so I can do a good burnout if I needed just to lock it up and spin it. And then you pull it back and it locks up the rear brakes. The problem is the way the electric ABS system in there was, as you pushed it forward or pushed it back, it would just kind of like malfunction. You get all these red lights on the dash. So it didn't work. So that's why the car wouldn't drift.
Right.
But I think, and every time I tried to drift it, we broke something. So it didn't work.
So I have to ask this question. I know you've answered it a million times, but how did you think I'm going to open my door and hit this target? How did that, for me, I feel like I wouldn't have thought that fast and been like, okay, let me open my door to hit this target.
And so and kind of give you an example, we had a little bit of time, right? Because originally the first time we were filming, we were practicing for a few days, and the car was broken. Episode 1 player, we all drew these ping pongs, and it said this way. They were like, hey, we won't know who's gonna it's kind of like a fair way of saying who's gonna go first. We all just pulled a number, and it didn't say number 1. It just said number 16 or whatever number I was. And then they pulled they were 16. All right, we're gonna pull whoever has the first number we pull is the one you're going first. Who's got 16? I'm like, I have 16. So I was player 1, episode 1, and they were like, you're gonna kick off the show. And they actually show Fielding kick off the show. Fielding wasn't the first player to go on the show. I was supposed to go first, but it got kicked over, and somebody else went first, and then second, third, fourth. Fielding was probably the 10th driver, but he was such a great driver that they were like, we have to show him, right? And he's, as you guys can see how amazing he is, he's probably one of the best drivers on the show. Obviously, Diego and João, the Brazilians, those guys are amazing too. But these guys are professional drifters. And I hope you guys understand this. They are sponsored and get paid to do this for a living. So we had this talk right before we went on, it was my turn to go. Remember, every day they were like, you're getting pushed back, another episode. Finally, on the 4th episode, they were like, if you don't go right now, you're not going to compete anymore. And the car wasn't working right. I could barely, anytime I would turn the wheel really hard, the car would just lock up. The steering wheel would actually, if you've ever had a steering pump fail, if I went all the way to the left, the car just got stuck at left, and I would hit a wall. So I told the producer, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, I don't care what you do. He's like, just hit the course. He goes, just make sure that the targets hit your doors. Meaning that he meant if I slide the car, I didn't have to hit the back of the car. He just hit the doors. And so I looked at him, and it was ACP, right? He's the main stunt driver of the show. They barely show him in the show, but he's pretty much helped that whole show work. He goes, I said, I'm sitting there with my helmet on, my mic in. I'm like, can I use my door? And he's like, yeah, use your door. And I was and Fielding was over there, and I said to him, I'm like, dude, I'm going to open up my door. And Fielding's like, I think it's a great idea. He goes, just pop your door open, hit it. So that first run we're going, I knew I was going to do that. Fielding knew I was going to do that. A few other guys I think we mentioned too, because we were all in the pits together, and they would make everybody go sit at the audience, and they were like, all right, we're filming. Nobody do anything crazy. Hide all your phones and all that stuff. And I start going. And if you guys watch the show and you want to put it in slow motion, when I hit the door, they show the audience I'm in the audience going, That's not the real scene, okay? So I'm in the audience. That's when something else happened, and we're like, oh my God, like somebody might have crashed their car. If you actually watch, if you pay attention, like you guys might not know all the characters or everybody who's on the show, but you can see, like, I'd be in the audience, like center, and I'd be left, right. Like they would just use different clips of our audience because we were in the audience.
That's hilarious.
So half that stuff we were like going, oh my God, it's from other stuff, or they would tell us to do it. But
that's funny.
When I open up the doors, I can hear everybody because we're like mic'd up, and my co-driver, you know, my navigator, which was my ex at the time, I could hear them just laughing, and she's laughing, and producers are laughing. I could hear everybody in my ear, and so I had no clue they were going to portray it as being the bad guy. and so. But if you ask anybody, you know, Fielding, all those guys, whoever, they're going to all say the same thing. They all think it's funny. They all thought they would all laugh. But I think the show needed a little bit of drama. If you notice, besides Stacy's car breaking, and besides, they didn't even show Zhao crashed his car, and they never even showed it, you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they showed Fielding crash his car. Besides a couple of things, there wasn't anything that people would be mad about. And I think me opening up the door was like the only thing people were mad about. But nobody else is mad, and the way they portrayed it, they made it seem. I got a message the other day. It said, like, you're the worst poor sportsmanship person I've ever met. And I never
get the most genius move there is. I mean, what are you gonna do? Use the door? All right, use the door. I mean,
on decision making.
I mean, you know what? It's a joke between everybody. Like with all of our stuff, we all talk about it. Like, oh, wait, open up the door, and my friends send me videos of them opening their doors, hitting stuff all the time. I mean, it's funny, you know. Like I said, I told the producers if I come back on, I'm going to put an automatic door openers for my passenger side now.
That was actually my next question, because I figured if the show does return, it'll return in a year, just like last time, and they're probably getting drivers right now. Is it? I know you can't tell me if you're getting it, but is it something you would go on if you had the opportunity?
Oh yeah. So the main producer of the show is a producer of BattleBots. You ever watch BattleBots?
Of course.
So that's the main producer. His name's Aaron Catling. He's an awesome guy. He pretty much, I told him, I was like, hey, I'll make BattleBot style with a supercar. I'll bring like a Ferrari or a McLaren, Lamborghini, whatever you want. I'm like, I'll put actuators. I'll have all the stuff open up. Whatever you want. I was like, I'll have it'll shoot tennis balls to hit targets. What do you want me to do? And he's like, oh, I would love to have you. Obviously, it's not his decision. He's just a producer. He's not a casting agent. So they haven't said nothing yet. I know Fielding kind of mentioned that they already were in the talks of season 2, which I'm sure if you guys watch his YouTube channel. Yep. Nobody knows for sure. Nobody said anything. I know that if there was a season 2 happening or whatever, nobody's going to know about it anyway.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're going to keep it all under the wraps. They kept that under the wraps. Literally, they had security miles from our set, and you couldn't even get in the set because people were walking up with cameras taking pictures, you know?
Yeah.
And how I feel like I heard this before on either you or Brittany or Fielding's video, but I can't recall. How long were you guys on set for?
Less than 30 days. I would say like 22 to 28 days was the whole thing. You were there for a few days practicing, and then they filmed for like 15 days.
Yeah. So, I mean, for people who are like, oh, I want to get on the show, like, you got to understand you have to be an individual who has the time to dedicate to it, the car to dedicate to it, and, you know, the resources. Because I also watched in Fielding, he was like, look, all those things I was doing, the recklessness with my car, he was like, all that came out of my pocket. We didn't get any money for being on the show. So I think that's important for viewers. I would love to get on the show, but you got to keep those things in mind too.
Yeah, I mean, it was expensive. I know I said it. I think I said the cost was close to $40,000. Pretty much for me, it was. You know what I mean? For other people, it could have been $3,000. You know, obviously the show paid for your food, your hotel, that kind of stuff. They just didn't pay for any of your car stuff. Like that wasn't their responsibility. You know. I think though if they do a season 2, I definitely see them doing like a grand prize. They gave a trophy away. You saw that, right? The guy.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch the whole series?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You guys know who wins, obviously.
Diego,
Of course.
baby-faced assassin, of course.
You knew he was going to win from day one. Trust me. When we were there on set, like I have like my Snapchat, like old videos. I literally am like, this kid's going to win this whole competition. And he doesn't speak English. I don't know if you ever heard him talk. So
I actually follow his YouTube channel. Actually, he's doing a lot of stuff on YouTube now.
Yeah, he only speaks. I'm going to see him. We're going to grab lunch in a couple weeks when we're in Vegas. And he knows a little English, but we would use like his phone. He would translate. He'd say something in his phone, and we would talk. But he was just all business when he got there. Like his dad and his team was like they were like this little machine that we all knew right off the bat. Like we didn't know who was going to win, obviously, but we had a good idea that he was going to beat everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
Just because he was awesome.
I know you already. What's up?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know you said already, they're going to have like a trophy and all that stuff. Not a trophy, but a grand prize the next season. You think if they do another season, it's going to be kept as hush-hush as it was in the first season here, with notifying the drivers of the challenges and all that stuff? I assume they're probably going to change location as well, but I was just kind of curious, if you think that they're going to keep everyone in the dark so much as they did this year.
I think they're going to keep people more in the dark for this season because you already know kind of what could happen.
Yeah.
So they're going to keep it where you're not going to know. They're going to have to come up with all new challenges, right? Because
of course.
The challenge that came up there, you got to remember, where have you guys ever seen people do what those cars were doing? Besides a movie that are stunt drivers and cars that are not real, that are jumping things,
for sure.
They took a couple of challenges out. I damaged my car from right off the bat. We used to jump over this metal incline. So imagine this little kind of like this. You used to slide your car and go and land like this. And every time people would land, they go like this, and their tires would pop. So
jeez, yeah.
I went up twice and just broke my side skirts. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing that challenge anymore. During practice, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because it would just damage the car too much. And they were like, well, you got to try it. I'm like, so I would go, instead of going like this, I would just kind of just drive over it. Which is a big
so basically what you're saying is what I was going to ask as well. So they were just really kind of going with the flow too. They really didn't know what they were going to produce, what they were going to film, what they were going to kind of use as the obstacles and all that. They just kind of gave you a bunch of choices, and then they kind of used what stuck, it seems like, correct?
So they actually sent us in an email 10 days before, 2 weeks before, and it was a diagram. It was kind of like a storyboard of what obstacles look like. And it was a cartoon thing. And I remember looking at it, and there was spikes and stuff. And I was like, it literally looked like a mix of some sort of crazy video game with some TV or a movie where I'm like, we're not gonna. So it was one of the obstacles where you drove through things. They had these spikes on the side originally, and it said spike damage car, get a flat tire. It was crazy the way they had the diagrams. I remember looking at it and saying man, they paid some cartoonists to draw these. This guy did a great job, but there's no way any car in the right mind could do this.
Right.
But I think they built the obstacles as we were there. So a couple of the obstacles, that big leveler you saw, the day we got there, I have this on video. It wasn't even built yet. It was just this metal grate, and there was all this wood on it, and they were building it, and they were like, you guys are going to go up that a week from now. And I'm like,
that's great.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. You guys have no people look at it and I could do that. You don't realize how big this thing is. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And you can't see. I don't know if you guys have been in cars. Obviously, you guys are car guys, but when you have roll cages in your cars and small windows, you can barely see. And you got a helmet and you're strapped in.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's such television.
Yeah. So your neck is like this. You're strapped in, and so I can't even turn like this if you look in the video. And you're supposed to kind of see where you are on this thing. So there's all this crazy stuff, and those guys know their cars so well. The owners of company cars literally just walk by with this Dyson vacuum, cleaning the floor, just. So like I said, for what it was, to see that in person, you couldn't even fathom what you were doing. It just, it's one thing going to a drag strip at night and going in a straight line. Imagine how much adrenaline you have when that red light's going and that yellow and that green, right?
Yep.
Now imagine that times 10, and it just kept going and going because every obstacle you would stop. So it's pretty insane.
Well, I know all three of us watched through the entire series. Absolutely loved the show. All the characters were great. And I think, once again, going back to it, I think it's a great show and a great thing for the community. But moving on from that, I want to kind of go into, as we're kind of closing this interview up, a little bit more into Ultimate Road Rally.
Yeah.
What would you tell our viewers about Ultimate Road Rally? How can they get involved and that sort of thing?
So one thing that Ultimate Road Rally is doing is with our app that we have right now, you can download the app and make a profile. But coming forward this winter, we're working on this really cool system. We're pretty much creating like a Pokemon Go style for cars. So you can meet other car guys, but you're going to get rewarded by going to these locations. So example, you go to your neighborhood car wash, right? And you check in there. By the more check-ins, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, stuff that you're doing to like better that business, spending money there, you get rewarded by getting points. And every point you guys get goes into the store, and you can buy t-shirts, hoodies, hats, a bunch of cool gear, gift cards for sponsors. It's going to be able to give you a reason, instead of you guys going and driving and parking in your local Krispy Kreme or Starbucks or McDonald's and park your cars and hang out, you actually can see other users on the app, become friends with them, and then drive together to these locations and kind of play against each other. So that's going to be coming up in the next few months, and that's what you can do. And then once we do that, we're still doing Ultimate Road Rally. So imagine like those are the, college football games, and then the NFL is all the supercars racing. Well, once you get enough points in that system, we're going to give somebody who's playing the game an opportunity to drive a supercar for the day or the weekend at one of our Ultimate Road Rally events, all free, all inclusive, just by playing the game. So that's coming out probably, I'm hoping to launch by March.
Very cool. And
awesome.
like you said, the app is called Ultimate Road Rally then?
Yeah, you can download the Ultimate Road Rally app today. And you can follow along when there's a live game happening. You can see the points happening. But essentially, it's going to be a live game weekly. So you'll see users pop up. It'll say, hey, do you want to play Saturday? You can invite your friends. And then you guys can play against each other or on the same team. So you can join teams, go to the location together. So you kind of cruise together. You can use a motorcycle, car. It doesn't matter what car you're in, because you're just playing to get points, to get gear, and then obviously hope to win the pass to actually the golden ticket to come on the real Ultimate Road Rally.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And if people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so obviously you can follow me on the Ultimate Road Rally Instagram, which we post all car stuff. On my private personal Instagram, which you obviously see, it's mostly fun daily life, kind of behind the scenes of cars, fun stuff to do. I mean, I do a lot of funny stuff that might not be appropriate for everyone, but it's Omar You Are Our Life.
Omar, you are hilarious, man, on Instagram. You are, the memes you post are hysterical.
Yeah.
Like, I was, looking for people to have on the podcast, and I followed you. I don't remember. Obviously after Hyperdrive, I found you, followed you, and I kept looking at your page because your memes were so funny, like your story. And I'm like, man, I gotta have this guy on. I was like, he's just hilarious.
Yeah,
you guys are definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I do get a little wild with the memes sometimes. Like I make my own sometimes, and I obviously steal a ton of memes because they're nobody's memes. You could steal them, right? So I mean, they're on the internet. It's for free.
Right.
Right. No.
So I mean, I have fun. Like I said, that my social life is it's all public. I don't keep nothing private. My Facebook's public. If you guys like car stuff, obviously I post cars for sale. We get cars that nobody else has. Obviously, some of these supercars are all modified, and I list them first on my social media accounts before they actually hit the market. So it's kind of cool if you're looking for something before somebody else sees it. So, yeah, so I appreciate that if you guys want to follow that, and I'll try to keep the funny memes going for you too.
Awesome. And last question.
Yes.
What would you say to someone who is trying to make a name for themselves in the car community as a general?
I guess one thing is I started doing this, I'm 33 years old right now. Social media today is so much more advanced than it was a long time ago. Obviously, if you have good content and you have cool stuff to post and you don't obviously overdo it, I tell people all the time, it's just make it natural, have fun with it, and that's all I am. But if you're trying to do something in the car community, start small. Everybody message me and they're like, hey, I want to do a car rally, I want to do a car show, I want to do an event, I'm doing a charity event. I have these 14, 15-year-old kids who throw supercar events here in Chicago. And nobody knows they're 14, 15 years old because they have this great Instagram page, and they get all these guys to show up in their supercars. And I know the kids because they come into my dealership and they're like, hey, can you invite your friends? And me personally, because I do my own events, I just tell them the truth. I'm not going to invite 30 supercars to a parking lot at their high school, but just have fun with it. If you want to start something and do a cool car event, there's no age limit, right? You can start at 13 years old. Like these kids, they're great they have awesome cameras. So they take awesome photos for these guys. Just do something like I always tell people, do a little car show, have everybody bring some food for a food pantry, some clothes for a homeless shelter, something like that. Yep. If you can get people together on a good cause, it's so much easier and better. And it's worth it. I always say, what's your end game? What do you get out of it by having 30 cars show up in a parking lot? What's going to change? You have a bunch of cars to take pictures of? Well, make those 30 cars do something good for someone else. And that's what we've started on, and that's why we became so successful. And every event we do, if it's for kids, for the police, for homeless, for animals, whatever we can, I tell people to do something for someone else, and that's what kind of makes it more fun, for me at least.
Awesome. Very cool.
Great advice. Brody, Billy, do you have any closing questions for Omar before we get on out of here?
Everything up? So for season 2 of Hyperdrive, do you think they're going to gear it differently than like gearing it towards drift cars?
I think they have to, because they have to progress, right? I think they're going to have it now. Going to be they've realized that people don't want to just watch. I mean, me personally, I'm a car guy, right? I like everything. Will I watch a drift car event? For a few minutes, yes. Will I watch a speed car event? A few minutes, yes. Will I watch drag race? You have to have all the obstacles. I think if they do a season 2 and there's a drift course that you can get points on, and there's a drag course which you can get points on. There's an autocross course. If they can mix and match, where some people will have better better points in certain aspects of the competition, I think it'll be a lot better for the car community, because now everybody can say, hey, I might not be the best drifter, but I guarantee I'll beat you in a straight line, or I'll beat you going around a track, and pretty much a road course, right? So I think that would be the fair thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Very good.
Well, Omar, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on here with us. I look forward to seeing what all Ultimate Road Rally has to offer and what you guys do coming out with the app later this year. And if there's anything you need from me, gentlemen, Brody and Billy, you just let us know, okay?
I appreciate it. If you guys need anything else, or I'll try to get some of the other guys from Hyperdrive on. If you guys want to talk to them, they're all great friends.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
That'd be awesome.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again, Omar.
All right, bye.